Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Strategy Game podcast. I am so honored and grateful to have Helen on with me today. Helen, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm
And
excited.
I'm just excited to share your story because you come from a background of working, for a Fortune 100 company. And I think Helen and I both connect. It's hard to find like those strategy brains. And because your consulting business is called My Strategy Mentor, we clearly connect on that front. But it's not so much just business strategy. It's also that life strategy piece, which I'm excited to get to in a little bit. But can you tell us just a little bit about yourself, like your background, where you came from, and the strategy work that you love to do?
Yes. Yep. So my background, in short, is growing up as an immigrant, moved from China to America when I was 5. Grew up with really hardworking parents who kind of instilled in me a work ethic around working hard and making sacrifices and just trying to better yourself. And so I kind of grew up with that work ethic, went to NYU undergrad in marketing, and ended up working at great companies where I grew a lot, worked at L'Oreal in marketing and brand marketing, and then moved over to Amazon, and then worked at a couple startups. And then my last role was a director of marketing at Walmart corporate. And so, so much of like those, 10 plus years of working were focused on just working hard, achieving, learning. I loved marketing strategy. I loved what I did. But then I kind of had, over the past couple of years, had this restlessness around purpose, trying to understand, okay, and so much of this is driven by faith and my relationship with God, where I just felt like he wanted me to work more purposefully, according to my talents. So I was using my talents, but it didn't feel on purpose for me. And so Lauren and I met through Women Doing Well, and which is all about purpose and passion, right? And generosity. And so that, that relationship with Women Doing Well and learning more about what my purpose was, which is really, using my skill set to help those that I really want to serve, which are nonprofits, mission-driven companies, smaller companies. That really propelled me to leave this career, last year, May of 2021, and start my own business, My Strategy Mentor. So it's been a couple months in, and it's just been really fruitful because it feels like I'm able to give to my community, to God in a way that is just another dimension compared to where I was.
I love that. So amazing. Yes. Okay. That's so good. I think what's evident as I've gotten to know you, Helen, is that you are really willing to make bold moves in areas that you feel you believe in, and that the things that you're hearing. And so I think you really let your creator, God, be the leader of your life, and you're listening. So it's more of a following and a being led, which I can relate to. And oh man, has helped me tremendously over the years, because early on in my career, and you may be able to relate to this, it was more of like a striving and like a running, and like, I have to like make it happen. Like I've got to make things happen. And there's this shift as you like release and just surrender more of like, I don't have to make anything happen. And what's so beautiful about that is that all of the weight and the burden that has sat on your shoulders is lifted off. And there's this freedom that's like unparalleled. That's just incredible. So
you're speaking my language.
Like, how has that like looked for you? Because you've got, a family and, your career as well, and trying to balance all of the things. And it's interesting, like you're talking about your background and how you grew up, and that's what you were taught, that work ethic. And there's something wonderful and beautiful, and there are a lot of benefits to that work ethic, but it's also like you realized wait a minute, it's not, there are things that I want to change and do differently here, and I'm going to change the story.
Yes.
So can you talk to us about how you're changing that story while bringing
Yes.
work ethic with you?
Wow, Lauren, that is such a good question. It's like a multi-pronged answer, but I'm going to try to be concise. It's so good. And you're so right on the freedom part, that I've never felt more contentment and freedom ever. Even though, you know, to the world, it might be like, you left a really big job. Like, why'd you do that? You know, I have to say I give God, because I'm not wise enough or smart enough to make these decisions to know what is really going to make a healthy, fruitful life. You know, Ben and I both grew up with families that didn't have a lot. And so we kind of went into college and the workplace with a little bit of a chip on our shoulder of like, we need to achieve and make the life for ourselves. And, you know, I think the perspective of, you know, a couple that actually did achieve, like he had a big job on Wall Street. I had a big job in corporate, right? We both were, you know, making high salaries. We really didn't rely on God, even though we were Christians. We didn't really rely on him as our provider, because we provided for ourselves. And so we had this one extreme where we were just getting promoted and making more and more money. We were saving like 6 figures in our mid-20s, right? And it's like, okay, like that's insane.
Right.
And feeling the lifestyle creep, living in New York and feeling, you know, how the community around us, every time they make more money, their lifestyle goes up. And so even early then in our 20s, before having children, it was like, what's the lifestyle that we want? Like, we don't need to keep getting a nicer and nicer apartment. I remember like Googling like Chanel bags, and I'm like, do I really want a Chanel bag? Or is it, you know, nothing wrong with Chanel bags, but it was like the consumption, right? The consumption mindset.
Right.
Yeah. So your environment really matters. And so God actually pointed us to Jersey City, which was an up and coming city, you know, right across the river from New York, which helped break a little bit of that consumption culture that New York has. And so he guided us out, and then we ended up, you know, recently moving to Philadelphia. And so he actually, I think geography really matters, where if you're surrounded by everyone who has more than you, it can be really tempting, right? Whereas now we're in a place where, you know, it just feels very neutral. There's not as much temptation. And that has allowed us to listen to God and hear him speak to us. So Ben left his job. He has a very similar story to me. He left his job in pursuit of calling for using his gifts to serve the kingdom. And he started his own financial planning company.
Awesome.
And I got to see how God truly called him, and how much Ben relied on God to bring in business. You know, he had no idea who his next client was going to be. I got to watch him be so faithful, God be so faithful in those 4 years. And so by the time that God called me and put a burden in my heart, which is like, I have so much, you've gifted me so much, and I'm not being a good steward. I'm just not. Like, I'm not, you know, when you just know there's like something hollow in your heart, and you're like, I have all these gifts, but I don't feel like I'm using them the way that you want me to use them. Like, I have these talents, I have this money, you know, but I'm just saving and saving and saving. I just don't feel like this is how you want me to perceive money. And so, or how you want me to perceive how to live a life that glorifies you on this earth. So I think there was a period of wrestling for me and a period of wrestling for Ben. Long story short, the way that we finally made the leap was truly surrender. You know, you use this term surrender, but truly surrendering and believing 100% that, like, God, you're my provider. You're my security. And it meant actually learning more about the biblical principles of money. You know, like, so really meditating on that and feeling like convicted that we were storing up treasures on earth that you can't take with you when you die. And, you know, there was a lot of excess in our life, really just in our bank accounts, that, you know, we didn't even need, practically speaking. Like, we didn't need, you know, when we cover retirement and 529 plans, all the practical things, mortgages, but we still had extra. And so being convicted of that, 2 things that helped us take a leap, that helped reframe money and reframe work. One was generosity, and another one was, you know, service to others. So
that's really
those are the 2 steps. You know, it's like easier said than done, but we ended up becoming more generous, ended up serving more. And that helped me understand what my purpose was, just by volunteering.
And for those listening, a couple thoughts come to mind, like wherever we've got people that may believe in God and people that may not believe in God, or people that might not know where they are, right, in their walk. And I think that, what was coming to mind when you were saying, like, it allowed us to listen to God and hear his voice more. And we're talking about this process of being led rather than making it happen for ourselves. And I think a lot have experienced this maybe in the past 2 years, or, since just everything that's happened with COVID and everything that's kind of happened in the world. And, it feels like in some senses, things are getting a little bit crazier. And I think we're just realizing that we never were in control, but I think it's very easy for us to think we're in control or feel in control. And so how does it happen for you all? I know for me and some people around me, they hear the voice differently. Like it can go up in different ways. For you guys, what does that look like? Like hearing the voice and following, being led.
Yeah. It's so funny. A lot of it has to do with what you believe. And so for the longest time, I did not have a lot of experiences with the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Only 2 years ago did I feel like, wow, I'm God speaking to me in new ways. Like I have a real relationship with the Holy Spirit, and I'm understanding, I'm starting to recognize when he does speak to me. So this is getting very, very kind of almost theological in a way. But, I just have this knower sense where it's like, I know this is what God is impressing in my heart. And then he'll back it up with the words of the community around me, scripture. He'll just deeply convict me. And I'm like, this keeps coming up over and over and over again, that, I want you to steward the resources I've given you better.
Yes.
I want you to serve, in this way. And so, the encouragement of the Women Doing Well staff, I was volunteering there, and, just the work that I was doing was actually encouraged, and people were saying, hey, you should keep doing this, which is very encouraging, kind of affirmed this like deeper call, the sense of calling that I had. So
that's awesome.
But I feel like God can speak to everybody in different ways, and it's really important to just be quiet before him, and just remove the distraction. So as I mentioned, like the distraction of New York and consumerism, like that helped us personally to get out of a tempting place and into a quieter place. And of course, you kind of have to feel a sense of, there's something more. So I think that's in your own walk with God of like, do you feel like you're content where you are? I was not content with the work that I was doing. So
good.
That wrestling period beforehand and praying, God, lead me, give me an answer. Cause I don't know where to go next. I literally don't know where. Am I going to go to another big company? Do I stay in marketing, which I liked, right? I just continued to ask him, like, guide me, because I have no idea. I just know that this is not it.
Yeah. You knew that wasn't it. And it's interesting. And there's some places, and it's interesting. I've been reading a lot of words lately. And I think there is an atmosphere where there can be a corporate kind of spiritual atmosphere of like, what is happening in the world and what's happening like collectively. And then there's the personal spiritual walk, which is for me as well, listening. And I didn't really know about like the Holy Spirit, or the fact that, that was like a voice, and that's actually a voice that's us that we can hear. And, so that's been a more recent journey for me as well. And definitely like total game changer in life. I don't get the internal sense of panic or anxiety that I used to have. It's just completely different. Which is amazing. Like calmness and a sense that clarity will come. And so when you said that, where you were at that inflection point of like, do I continue to go into marketing or do I do something else? There's it can look like a wilderness. We can call it a wilderness season, or it can look like hey, I'm here now and I haven't gotten to where I'm going yet. And I'm like in the middle and I don't know where to go. But the great part is that when you're like surrendered to it and you're just like being led and you're being still and like listening, instead of trying to figure it out, it just flows. I can't explain other than that. It just it flows, and you don't have to worry, and you don't have to strive, and you don't have to like figure it out, like there will be actions, of course, like, like you said, even with like your financial plan, and like, yes, you still need to do certain things, but it's just this shift, and it's just completely different. And so I just really admire the way that you guys have realized this. And for you, it was a very personal experience. And I think for everybody, it's a very personal experience of like, what is it, like, where is it that you're being led right now? And where is it, what is next for you? Or like, what are you getting ready to walk into? Or what your identity maybe haven't you stepped into? I mean, are there past, wounds, past holdbacks that are like holding you back from actually walking, in who you are? And
I love that you mentioned identity, because that's one, I think identity and money, are big barriers to the freedom of walking into a new chapter.
That's interesting. So
that was a big one for me.
Tell me about how that related to like money for you, and then like the shift that you've experienced where you actually said like, we're just going to limit like our, like income to be able to be generous and to serve. Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, identity. So my identity was so wrapped up in work. It felt really nice to give when you're making a lot of money. And it felt very freeing because it was like, okay, this really feels like it's all God's. And so generosity was great and helped kind of unshackle us from, this God of mammon, right? Like where we were not defining our worth by money because we started giving, right? So that was step one. But then detaching myself from my career, and this, having climbed this ladder of success and getting this, title and this recognition at this big company. Same with my husband, leaving Wall Street, where that was his identity. Was this, Wall Street, buy side analyst. It was very, very hard. And God had to remind us, like, hey, you are my daughter first. And the way that I see you is so much greater than what you're trying to earn for yourself. Everything in our identity, all our self-worth was like our accomplishments and what we earned. So he had to kind of break that false perception that my self-worth is like what I do. And instead it's like my self-worth is what he has already done on the cross, and that I am really free and I can't fail if I view him as, the CEO of my life. If I just follow, like I can't fail, So I started holding a lot of those things very loosely. And slowly and surely, the Holy Spirit kind of worked in me to not care at all about what other people perceive of me, where, if I am never known by anybody for doing anything big, that's totally fine. Like, I don't need to do anything big. All I need to do is follow him. And so that desire for like being known and, being an achiever and accomplishing things, that kind of selfish ambition just disappeared, I think there's a quote in the Bible that's like, make it your life's mission to like lead a quiet life or something.
Lead a quiet
And my husband Ben and I were both thinking of that, and we were like, that's really amazing, because the people who are like leading cities in heaven are like the grandma that like served in, children's ministry faithfully, and no one knew who she was, but she was a faithful servant who loved God and loved people. And she's the one ruling cities in heaven, not like, the prior Zuckerbergs or Bezos of the world, so different perspective of what self-worth and identity really, how God views us versus how we view ourselves. So kind of those shackles of money, shackles of identity and self-worth, like those things just had to completely change for us to move into this next season.
And it's pretty amazing. I mean, and how have you seen just you guys change on this like personal journey that you've been on? Like, is it just the freedom and the contentment, or like, what does every day look like for you guys now? And how is it different?
It is so different. It is so life-giving.
Hmm.
I didn't realize how much I was running on fumes,
Yeah.
because, I was working at night or always taking calls at like 10 p.m., receiving texts from, my manager, things like that. I just didn't realize how little freedom I had despite the income, right? Despite the money and the abundance that I thought I had, I realized actually I didn't really have an abundant life
Yeah.
because I didn't have an abundant mindset. I had a scarcity mindset, which was like, I have to keep
Yeah.
going, keep working hard. Meanwhile, I'm storing up treasures on earth that will not last,
Yeah.
working so hard for something that's just not going to last. And now, even though our bank accounts are much lower, it feels very freeing to know that God, you are my provider. I don't have to strive. Even with this company,
Yeah.
honestly, my DNA would have been, because I've worked at startups. I was
Mhm.
part of seed round startups, post-acquisition startups, and I was the head of growth.
Yep.
So literally my DNA was like, you own all the marketing budget. You need to grow this, 10-person company to a
Yeah.
50-person company. And so my DNA is performance and achievement and growth and hustle. And with this company, God has just been like, you're here to serve me. The only thing that matters is you serving me. So I get temptations to hustle and try to grow this thing. And it's always convicting where it's like, no, I don't want you to go and network. I don't want you to hustle. I will bring you the clients that he has.
Yes.
And he's given me this balance too, where I can see my son more. I
Mhm.
have time for, reflection with him. I have rest.
Yeah.
It's just different. It's weird to have a balanced life. I've never had that.
Right? What is this?
I know. And I almost feel bad saying it because a lot of my peers were where I was,
Yeah.
over a year ago,
Yeah.
struggling with so many things. And
Isn't it?
again, it comes with this mindset of like more and more and more. I need to make more for myself and
Yeah.
not realizing that the key to contentment is knowing, hey, I have enough now,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
which I do.
And
So
have enough financially, and then know that like, wow, there's so much more fulfillment in all of the other areas of life.
yes,
Like the freedom
yes,
of what's coming to mind is just like the freedom of stepping away. So for anybody who's
yes.
listening, like, what freedom do you need to give yourself to
Mm,
step away?
yes.
Whatever it is,
Mhm,
that's preventing
mhm,
you from being still, being led more, being more surrendered, all of those things, from being
mhm.
filled, like life-giving type of
Yes,
filled. And it's
yes.
interesting. I feel like there's been a shift in the last couple of years where, after us collectively going through, COVID and things that like people, I notice it in myself, I can't run like I used to, and I don't think I'm supposed to. I
Yes.
get tired
Yep.
a lot easier, and I feel like I hear God saying like that you're supposed to, because
Hmm.
you need to go back, and you need to like fill up, and you need to rest,
Yep.
and you need to be more, and you like, so there's so many
Hmm.
things I think he's like, pointing things out in people for them to be able to be healed, or for them to be able to
Yes.
resolve from things
Yes.
previously in their lives, or for
Yep.
them to maybe slow down enough to see certain things that they needed to see that maybe they couldn't see before because life was so fast.
Yes. I completely agree. Parents going, I've never spent so much time with my kids.
Yeah.
It's hard, but it made me realize how little I spent with them pre-pandemic,
Yeah.
which is really convicting.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
love that.
So
Yeah.
good. Well, Helen, as we wrap up here, and I could talk for 3 hours on this. It's just so
Me
amazing.
too. Me
Maybe
too.
we'll have to
I
do
do have
it.
I do want to say one more thing because you brought it up and it reminded me, we talked about this,
Yes.
is the financial plan aspect.
Yes. So like tangibly, is there anything,
Yes.
or yeah,
I'm going to share one nugget that was really life-changing for me. And my husband continues to disciple me because he's a financial planner.
Yeah.
And, got certified and, he's a kingdom advisor, so it's kind of like the biblical principles of money applied in his job every day.
Cool.
And one thing that was really helpful practically is starting in reverse order. You know how most people, we don't know the lifestyle we want. It just keeps changing as we make more money. And so therefore you're always on this hamster wheel. It's always like, I'll just keep going. I'll just keep climbing the success ladder and I'll put that money to use and I'll make the lifestyle that I can earn, that I can afford. Yes. Instead, what we started to do, which helped us realize we don't need this, dual income corporate salary. We started with what's the lifestyle that we actually want. Yeah. Which really challenged us when we had a kid. And it was like, I want time, I want margin. I don't really need all these things. Right. Yeah. So what's the lifestyle that we want? How much would that cost? Looking at our expenses, like we did a financial plan. What are our expenses, mortgage, planning for the future, retirement, like add all of those numbers up. How much is that? And that number was a lot less for us than what we were bringing in. Yeah. And so that helped us realize, okay, are we committed to this lifestyle that we're envisioning where we're not planning to buy beach houses and just like all this excess to us? And it may not be excess for someone else, like, right? We all have different priorities, but what we clearly defined, this is excess for us, whereas this is like what we really value in our lifestyle. And having that number, which we're calling a financial finish line, because practically speaking, anything in excess of that, if God blesses our careers and allows us to earn more, anything in excess, we don't really need, right? So that's a means to be generous with, right? Like if you don't really need it for both your present and your future, then why hold on to, why store it up? Right. So that number helped us. And that number helped me realize, like, I don't really need to work in a full-time capacity. Like it gave us the freedom to realize, hey, Ben can be our primary breadwinner, which I never, expected going into this. I was the sugar mama working in corporate while he was starting his company, right? So that was a big shift for me. And it gave me the freedom to decide, okay, what's the right work-life balance for me and the appropriate salary, so it just was very helpful and made me realize I don't have to be in this high income corporate job if I don't want to be.
That's so awesome. Helen, thank you so much for sharing. This is so good. And it was life-giving for me. So thank you seriously for being willing to come on. And maybe we'll need.
Oh, thank you, friend. Because you and I speak the same language. Yes.
It's the best.
Yes. You and I love hearing your story too. Like you have clearly experienced what I've experienced. And it's so nice to be with people who really understand you on that level. With contentment and surrender and following God. And so thank you for just knowing me so deeply, even though we haven't known each other very long. Like I feel like you're a kindred spirit.
I know. So, love it. So thank you.
Yeah, love it. Thanks for having me on.